Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick. Over on this side of the comms is Justin, of course, providing gameplay. Today, he decided to went with Star Engineer or Space Engineer, I should
Space
say. I don't know
Star
why I say.
Engineer.
Hey. In fairness, that'd probably make a better sounding game title. But regardless,
Interestingly enough, yes.
but yeah, he decided to go with Star. I
Space
almost said it
Engineer.
again. He went with Space Engineer after a bit of boot up time and
You-
remembering how to use the controls time. I'm
It.
sure it'll be
I'll
fine.
be honest. I haven't played this game in 3, 4 years now, so it's
Yeah,
a
you'll be
lot's changed
fine.
since then. But here we are in my very poorly made makeshift blockade runner. I
Which is
mean, you
just a
can
giant
ever so
square.
slightly tell what it is by the very hodgepodge, numerous amount of engines at the back. So, that's all you need to know. Besides that, enjoy me flying through space.
I think it's a ship because of the engines. I think.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. Anyways, this week we're going to cover another interesting topic. I could have covered several topics this week. One topic I was debating about potentially covering is the recent stuff that Bife, or. No, it was Astacross who put out. Where he did a video kind of talking about Destiny and how it has become possibly a microtransaction hell. I am not, shall we say, in disbelief of that theory. I actually kind of quite agree with him in some ways when it comes to that theory. So that was one thing we could have covered. We could have covered some other stuff related to Warframe and a new update related to the Degree Paradox and how they're now doing kind of time limited content again, which is not always, which they really don't do usually when it comes to story missions. So who knows if they'll come back.
Who
There's
knows where
several
that
things we could have
goes?
talked about this week, but I thought we'd go back to, I almost said Star Citizen, but no, not Star Citizen. I was going to talk about Starfield. That's it. Recently, it has reached my attention, actually, that on a funnier note, the big boss of Xbox, Phil Spencer, actually stated in an interview that he basically bought out Bethesda, the creators of Starfield, all in an effort to basically keep Sony from doing the very same thing. Which doesn't sound like too, like, it sounds like you're sitting there going, okay, so what? Big businesses trying to prevent other big businesses from doing big business stuff. So what? Well, it kind of gets funny when you realize the kind of background here. So let me just set the stage a little bit here. This is the early PS5, Xbox Series X generation, right? Everything is, there's a whole new clean slate of PlayStations and Xboxes. There's the virus, whom I can't say on YouTube because we'll get demonetized for
You
some
know, the
reason.
redacted.
Yeah, immediately redacted, video deleted. But anyways, there is an unnamed virus. There is a, like I said, new console generation, and of course, with every generation, the question is, how are you going to move these units? Obviously, you need stuff that people are going to buy. And Sony decided to really expand their category because turns out a lot of major rumors were spreading around at the time that Sony was going all over the place trying to buy up studios into exclusivity contracts. So we kind of see evidence of that. Um, I believe it's Deathloop. Yeah, I think that's what it was called. Deathloop was a PlayStation exclusive. We know that Go Ghostwire Tokyo was a PlayStation exclusive. We now see the new Final Fantasy 16, which only came out recently, also a PlayStation 5 exclusive, or PlayStation exclusive in general, I should say. So there is evidence of this kind of dealing that Sony was doing. So it's not out of the ordinary for this to have been very possible. And so it kind of makes it all the funnier when Phil Spencer, again, during an interview, basically insinuated that the reason Bethesda got bought up um by Sony
PlayStation and
or
Sony
by
specifically.
Xbox, yeah, that the reason Xbox bought up Bethesda specifically was to prevent things like Starfield, from becoming Xbox exclusive or becoming PlayStation exclusives. So it is kind of interesting to see the kind of repercussions of Sony's actions. If that is true, then they are now paying for it in blood because there may now be a lot of Xbox exclusivity. So, eh.
Maybe that's what they want.
The funny thing is that Xbox insinuates they bought Bethesda specifically to block Starfield from becoming a PS5 exclusive.
Yes. Don't think about it too much.
Well, I mean, these games are in development for a while, right? And Starfield was already being unveiled. When was the first Starfield trailer unveiled? Let me just look at that for a second. Trailer. Let's see. The official teaser trailer was about 2 years ago.
Mm-mm.
So let's say around the time of the, first console generations being brought up. So it makes sense that Xbox would be. Well, so it makes sense that PlayStation, that is, or no, Xbox, I should say. I'm getting confused with my naming here. So it makes sense that Xbox would be well aware of the possible big success that would come out of said game. And if it became PlayStation exclusive, even if a timed one, which is usually how it works most of the time, or a straight up pure exclusive, it really will depend. Then, yeah, that's a massive chunk of revenue Xbox not getting. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting topic to bring up, the idea of exclusivity and the idea that Bethesda basically got bought up to prevent one potentially major game from being made to an exclusive. There's also other articles that say that this was possibly made into another exclusive, or was possibly originally planned for a PlayStation exclusive originally. So it's not like there's no evidence to believe that.
See where it goes.
Because here's the thing, right? This kind of comes off the back of there's a reason, like, why is this only being said now? Well, this is also coming off the back of Xbox's big kind of spat with the FTC. Now, you're probably wondering, what the heck is the Federal Trade Commission kind of
What does this
doing?
have to do with
Going,
anything?
what does this have to do with anything? Well, let me explain. Basically, the FTC does a lot of things in the tech space. They regulate a lot of things when it comes to, in this particular instance, monopolies. So you're probably thinking, well, what's that going to do anything? Well, if everyone has basically bought out every other studio in the industry, then you basically have a monopoly in the games industry with only one console generator, with only one big platform, let's say, basically controlling the rings of
Distributor?
every major game. Yeah, distributor. Let's go with that. That's a better one. So this all comes off the back of the FTC and Xbox's spat over one specific instance. Xbox has been trying to acquire Activision Blizzard. I don't know if you've heard, we did a video on it previously. That still technically was going to be a thing, and the FTC is currently trying to investigate the legality of that, specifically if that kind of constitutes a monopoly, because Blizzard, when, or I mean, uh, when Xbox bought Bethesda, that was a major chunk of the games industry they just scooped up right there. Which, is a major acquisition, but whatever. But now that he went on and tried to acquire Activision Blizzard, that's another big chunk of the industry they try to scoop up, and the FTC kind of was like, no.
Not interested.
Of course, Xbox is obviously fighting back against the allegations, and that brings us to today. So that's kind of where all this comes off of. Because apparently, during this investigation, documents were recently made public, again, as a part of the FTC, basically, interjection against Microsoft's planned acquisition, that both Starfield and Redfield were planned to release on Sony's PS5 console originally, with one tweet from Steven Totilo, I believe I'm pronouncing your name right. Sorry, mate, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But basically, he's been covering this, you know, FTC thing. And obviously, again, public investigation. These documents are made public, albeit highly redacted. For the most part. But from what we can get out of these documents, the non redacted parts, is that originally Sony was planning to put both Starfield and Redfield. Starfield and Redfield. I just realized similarity in those names. Or Redfall. My mistake, not Redfall. The game that ironically did very poorly, apparently. So it seems like Sony didn't lose out too much on that one. But again, from what these documents tell us, both Starfield and Redfall were planned to be put on Sony's console originally, and that's what drove Microsoft to buy, again, buy Activision or not Activision Blizzard, buy Bethesda to effectively cut this off before it happened. Because
Right.
obviously, if you own the company, you can basically force this exclusivity, or you can basically ensure this exclusivity contract never happens. Because again, it was still in talk, it was still in the works at the time. Stevens' exact words on the matter, and I quote, FTC's findings of fact are heavily redacted, ongoing investigation, but present idea that Microsoft is incentivized to take a short-term loss to harm PlayStation and monopolize high-end cloud and gaming submarkets. Microsoft disputes it would pursue exclusivity and that these are real separate markets. He also states that, also can't recall if they've said this before, but the FTC believes Starfield was originally planned to also release on PS5. So that, along with what Phil Spencer said, where he kind of alludes to the idea that Microsoft possibly bought Bethesda to prevent that, all kind of lines up. So that's kind of where we stand on the exclusivity market right now. What are your thoughts on the matter, Justin?
It's definitely going to be interesting as things continue to go on, mainly because of the fact that Xbox and PlayStation have a lot of things under their belt already. So
Hmm.
it's likely going to either A, reach a boiling point, or C, going to be a very interesting next 2-3 years to see where that goes.
That's the thing, right? Like, on one hand, I can see why the FTC is concerned, because obviously one game creator or big name
Distributor
in
and
the
all that.
space, distributor holding basically the rings of all the big gaming, like, independence. Because at the end of the day, right, Activision and Blizzard, they are scummy, but they are also an independent studio that both makes, well, quote unquote, and publishes their own games. Same thing with Bethesda till they got acquired. They are big independents, but nowadays, you're it's kind of like the it's kind of like basically what the streaming business is like for TV, right? You see a lot of big names consolidating a lot of the littler names in the industry. You're getting bought up by this one, you're getting bought up by this one, and it's basically being consolidated under a few major umbrellas. And that's kind of what the games industry is possibly having happen, and that's what the FTC is kind of hoping to avoid. Is it legal to make such massive acquisitions so close to each other, if at all? And does that kind of constitute a monopoly? So, that again is kind of an interesting point, especially for Xbox. PlayStation has never really struggled when it comes to having exclusivities, even when you discount the idea of them having these games under their kind of temporary exclusive contract, if not full on exclusive contract. There are a lot of games in the past generations that they have, and a lot of good characters and franchise that they have that they made exclusive back in the day and that they have of their own. They really just need to bring them back out. One of the big ones that you saw in that category, actually, that you see a resurgence of in recent years, excuse me, is the Ratchet and Clank series. That was a major name in the exclusive business for them excuse me, in previous years, and we're kind of seeing a resurgence thanks to Insomniac, who I also believe originally developed the Ratchet and Clanks originally. So it's not like they're straying too far
I
from what they did.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like there's having a whole new development team on it, or at least in terms of naming. So you're seeing a resurgence of that franchise in recent years, which is good because I like the Ratchet and Clank series. You also see new ones being created, like, for example, the new Spider Man games are all PlayStation exclusive, and the Spider Man games have been massive successes for Sony. And then you have the Horizon Zero Dawn or the Horizon franchise, which came out at the tail end or midpoint, I believe, of last generation, and have also become another major staple of their exclusive catalog. Same thing with God of War, by the looks of it. Like, even when you discount the old stuff they have in their catalog, you have a lot of good new stuff they're producing that is of the exclusive variety. So it's not like Sony has ever been short on exclusives, and that's always been one of their major selling points. Microsoft, on the other hand, has actually been criticized for it in the past of not having enough exclusives. I think back in the 360 Series X generation, or not Series X, Xbox One generation. So between those two generations, I believe mostly in the Xbox One generation, they were criticized for not having enough exclusives to kind of keep up with Sony in that regard. So I
Right.
can kind of see the business sense behind trying to acquire all these big studios to kind of fill out the catalog, because unlike Sony, who always seems to make smash hits with their exclusives, I really can't point to a specific franchise other than maybe Halo and a few others that Xbox really can call their own. Like,
Not entirely, no.
they kind of don't have much of a catalog. So I can kind of see where this decision comes from, but at the end of the day, how they're going about doing it has also attracted the ire of federal regulators, so maybe it wasn't all the best tactic at the end of the day, but I don't know.
See where it goes.
See where it goes, I guess. Xbox Bethesda being brought under the or Bethesda being brought under the banner of Xbox officially is a I don't know. Would you call that a good thing, Justin? You kind of know a lot when it comes to Bethesda stuff. I know there's a lot of people that would probably say it's a good thing because Bethesda has been known for
It's.
making crap business decisions. So
See, if this was 5 plus years ago or so, I'd say this would be a good thing. But seeing how Microsoft has kind of let 343 handle Halo and the Halo IP as a whole, I'm going to say don't know for sure. It's going to come down to who is leading projects, who's managing projects and stuff.
that's the thing, right?
Cuz like I said, Halo is to an extent doing kind of okay, but in others really not.
Yeah, it really depends on who you ask, I suppose, on that front.
Yeah. So, again, like there's a good chance that it might be good, but again, that comes down to who's going to be leading projects, which I'd be willing to bet for the most part Bethesda has control over that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I've heard different critics kind of originally when this went through. I've heard different critics. For example, I remember Jim's was it Jim Sterling? I think it might have been him. Maybe I'm misquoting the name. Hold up, let me just get the naming right. I always do this because I hate misquoting. Yeah, no, Jim Sterling. I remember originally when Xbox got both acquired Bethesda, Jim made a comment where he says, this is probably a good thing for Bethesda and gaming as a whole for the most part when it comes to the quality Bethesda puts out because here's the thing. Game-wise, they don't make terrible games, or at least they didn't used to. But after like after the debacle that came with Fallout Fallout 76, and some of the marketing decisions Bethesda's made over the years. One comment that I still remember to this day is, Jim goes, "This is a good thing for when it comes to the Bethesda people. When it comes to Bethesda, his exact line was, "Don't let them touch or run anything. Like, let them make games, they want. But when it comes to business decisions, don't let them say or do anything. Like,
Keep
let
them
someone
out of
else."
it.
Yeah, basically, let Microsoft run the business decisions. You just make the games. And I honestly believe that's got some level of weight to it because again, Bethesda's known for buggy ass shit, so I'll just be explicit there because I think that's a very good way of saying it. But yeah, they are some
Oh,
buggy stuff that Bethesda puts out. And again, and they've become famous for doing so in a way. So it'll almost be kind of funny to see how Starfield turns out because Starfield and Redfall were both games that were made under the banner during the time of Xbox. And while Redfall hasn't turned out too well, I imagine Starfield, considering how much more attention it's getting, will probably be a true judge of how the game is or how the company will perform under Xbox. Because again, Redfall is, call me a pessimist, but from the trailers of Redfall, I could already kind of tell that it wasn't going to be that great of a game. Maybe I'm just being a pessimist, but that was just the vibe I got. Like, it looked interesting, but I didn't think it would do that well. Starfield, however, I'm putting more money on, so we'll see. But overall, yeah. When it comes to Activision Blizzard, if they get acquired by Bethesda, or if they get acquired by Xbox, that'll be really funny because, again, this is a company that is legendarily scummy.
yeah.
So having Xbox kind of control them, which is, not exactly a saint by any means, but, far less legendarily scummy, I think I can say, will probably maybe balance out some of their worst tendencies. Like, maybe fix Activision Blizzard? Somewhat? With hope? I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that wants both sides of this argument. On one hand, I don't want Activision Blizzard to get bought out because that's one less independent in the industry.
But
Now, it
on the
won't
other,
really matter. Yeah, it won't really matter to me. I have an Xbox, but when it comes to by and large, competition-wise, this isn't really good. Except when you're looking at competition between PlayStation and Xbox. This will certainly scare the pants off Xbox or PlayStation, who I even remember hearing at one point if they like PlayStation even inquired if they would be able to keep the like for example the Call of Duty franchise. Because if Xbox did end up acquiring Activision Blizzard, guess who owns Call of Duty?
yeah,
Activision Blizzard.
don't worry about
And
it.
guess what makes a ton of money for both parties? Call of Duty.
Yes.
you know. I remember hearing one of those things where immediately PlayStation inquired if they did end up getting the green light from the FTC to buy Activision, if they'd still be allowed to have Call of Duty, because yeah, that's a major financial loss now that they've had if that becomes exclusive to Xbox. So
Pretty much, yeah.
we will see. Again, apparently Xbox is willing to play ball, so that's nice. But
See where they go with it.
yeah, on the other hand, I am for the idea of getting bought out because again, it's a bloody scummy company. So having someone who is at least somewhat moral do the decision making from now on as overarching decision makers will probably balance out some of the company's worst tendencies, I hope. But again, we'll have to see. This might not even go through because again, the FTC is really clamping down on this particular acquisition.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy on it, so.
Like again, I can see their point, but it's Activision Blizzard for bloody sake. Like, yeah, they're a big studio. Yeah, they're an independent, but yeah, they're also really bloody scummy, and leaving them by themselves is arguably more risky than letting them get bought out. If we were having this conversation with Bethesda, I would say, okay, there's room for debate here. Yes, Bethesda's scummy, but they're not, their biggest claim to, I guess, infamy is having broken games. But that's almost, what
That's
makes
it.
them so beloved. It's because of how broken their games are. Like it's so busted. It's almost cute. But
It's adorable.
yeah, no, it's so ugly that it's almost cute.
It's got a
So I could
ring
see
to it.
the debate there, right? But when it comes to Activision Blizzard, I think one way or the other, there will be benefits to gamers one way or the other. Yes, unless you have an Xbox, a lot of Activision stuff will probably be coming an Xbox exclusive. So if this does get a green light, I would invest now. Versus if it doesn't get bought out, then it will stay on whatever console you prefer. But on the other hand, it will still be under the guise of the guy who runs Xbox. And yeah, he is, not a good guy. So,
Funny man, funny plan.
you know, there's benefits and losses regardless of where you look here.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, that kind of wraps up the video for this one. Overall, interesting stuff. Interesting kind of where
Idea
this is getting
on
its.
where it's all going with the FDA and everything.
Don't mind him. He's got a long shift today.
Yes. Only so much sleep.
Mm.
But it'll be interesting because never it's always going to be an interesting talk when pretty much you've got like government bodies and stuff getting involved and stuff like this.
That
Because
is the thing, right?
let's be honest here, the most infamous case of a recreational item going and having serious levels of government intervention was alcohol, specifically in the US. So, I don't
That's the
think that
thing.
kind of level of stuff's going to happen, mainly because there's always a monopoly with everything nowadays. But that kind of
That's
extent of power can potentially happen.
that's the funny thing, right? When you look at alcohol, right? Alcohol is regulated in both the US and Canada, but far more in the US.
Mm.
Like, I
Yeah,
don't
in
know, like,
Canada, you pay a lot of taxes for alcohol, but it's not regulated like crazy.
oh no, it's regulated out the arse here. I even know because I went to Italy, right? I don't know if I've said this on the show, and I came back from a trip to Italy about a month or two ago, and it was a business trip, so I ended up going to places like several wineries and breweries. And I asked, "You sell to Canada?" And they go, "Well, a lot of us sell to the U.S., but not to Canada, because it is regulated to hell and back
Well, here's the thing.
because so much red tape."
I'll say this real quick because you went to Italy and you said you brought back some wine. I had a conversation with some people.
Privately,
What?
privately, I didn't. They won't sell to Canada, but you can't. There's nothing stopping you
Well,
from bringing it through customs.
well, yeah, but here's the thing. I had a conversation and it was like when you really realize it, it's actually pretty fair to go and bring like something into Canada. Like, oh, I brought in extra alcohol and I have to pay a little bit extra for that. It's not as bad as the US where it's like, oh yeah, I brought this extra thing. What do you mean? We're gonna take that and take it away from you now.
Well, that's just customs in a nutshell. It will depend on what customs you're in. U.S.
Yeah.
customs are just far more stringent, and the alcohol limit is less, but that's just their, limit for customs. The
In
only real
Canada, for the
upside,
most part, it's like, oh yeah, just pay a quick little extra bit and that's it. Be on your way.
oh, the same thing is there. Truth be told, as long as you keep within limit, that's the same thing wherever you go. Really, it's
Mm-hmm.
just their overall limit is less. That's the only difference between the two customs, honestly speaking.
True.
But yeah, no. A lot of stuff will get sold to the U.S., but the breweries will say, not Canada. The
No, thank
governments
you.
regulate it to hell and back, and you have to basically. I don't know if this is an entirely accurate analogy, but to essentially you have to legally bribe the government to get your product when it comes to alcohol in the country. So,
Kinda, yeah.
eh,
Welcome to Fallout
welcome
New
to Canada.
Vegas, where
But anyways,
you're always talking to Mr. House.
yeah. So yeah, by and large, stuff is less regulated when it comes to stuff in the U.S. just like a gun policy. But that's a whole other topic, not for our channel. But anyways,
Story for another time.
Yeah, that's basically where we stand right now when it comes to Xbox, and their arguably also FTC, position because they're still getting that worked out. But also with the whole bit that apparently Bethesda was bought to keep Starfield out of the hands of PlayStation. So, again, I see Sony doing that, so that's not entirely out of possibility.
Well,
So,
hopefully you enjoyed it for what it is and be prepared for the future.
yeah. Tell me, Justin, on a side note before we end up here, what
Yes.
would you say if they made Starfield a PlayStation exclusive?
Um, well, for a good while, it was kind of just promoted as like an all-around game. So if it did become an all of a sudden like exclusive like that, I'd say it'd be kind of scummy for a large number of people who would be buying the product.
That's the kind of big discussion around exclusivity in general, too, yeah.
Cause like here's my mindset of exclusivity. If you market your game, but you market it in a way where it could potentially seem like it's an exclusive, or you market it as an exclusive, then in my book you're fine. But if you market it where it's like, oh yeah, you could be playing it on any kind of console or whatever, and then suddenly it's an exclusive, then that's where I'm starting to sit here thinking you're in a little bit of a gray spot there, my guy.
That's the thing, right? By the looks of it, ironically, Starfield is now exclusive to Xbox.
Hmm.
So, PC obviously, because Xbox is Xbox, Microsoft, a major hand in the PC business.
Makes sense.
Generally, when people say that it's coming to Xbox, it also comes to PC, if nothing else, to the Microsoft Store, because again, they have a major hand in the PC market, so it just
Yes.
makes sense. But basically, they made it exclusive to Xbox to make sure PlayStation did not get the exclusivity themselves.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, this says one thing. Xbox clearly is betting on Starfield being a major success because again, if Phil Spencer says is true, who again is the big boss of Xbox, if what he says is true, and if these files do check, and that there was originally planned to be exclusive to Sony, and Xbox came in and bought Bethesda specifically to prevent that, it shows you that Xbox has a lot of faith in Starfield's success.
Just a little bit, yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, they bought Bethesda, so they got a lot of IPs and stuff out of it. So it's not a total, one-sided acquisition. So they're not, benefiting purely off that, but if that was the driving factor behind them doing it originally, well, again, it shows you Xbox has got a lot of faith in this one. We'll see if that turns out to be legitimate faith. But anyway, yep, that's the episode. Any final comments, Justin?
No, not really. Besides the fact that I'm going towards the sun, not really.
And the episode's over. Time to crash into the sun.
Yes. It's the only thing that you can do in any spacefaring adventure is to attempt to crash into the sun at some point. Why
It's
not?
like one of those videos. It's one of those videos where it's like 7 things every game player does. Number 7. In a space game, you will always attempt to crash into the nearest celestial body.
Why? Because you can.
Why? Yeah, why? Because why not?
If you
But
don't,
anyways.
you don't know what true meaning of human missile feels like. The Titans may know, but we know it better.
No.
The Titans may feel it, but we are it.
But I shall live it.
I am truly encased in a missile. I am the cargo.
I am the cargo.
God, I could just imagine it now, like a scenario where you have like a ship going and zipping down towards a large freighter full of enemies, crashes into it, and then inside this zipping ship is a Titan about to do the exact same thing with a thunderclap. Just
No. If they ever made a Destiny TV show, if you gotta see a Titan Thunder crash, you just gotta see him jump, land, and all you're gonna see is choo choo mother.
zippity ki
Bang! Choo choo.
I
Anyway.
well,
Anyways, that's the
hopefully you
show,
all
everybody. Hope
enjoyed.
you enjoyed. Have a good night. Or week or whatever.
Good night.
Have a good one.